Less than 2 months ago, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez stood on a cliffside in Maui, exchanging vows under the golden Hawaiian sunlight in what the international press unanimously called the wedding of the decade. It was a billionaire fantasy materialized into reality, with Hollywood royalty, tech titans, and political heavyweights all gathered to witness this union of unprecedented power and wealth. Every detail of the ceremony screamed both opulence and perfection, orchestrated with the precision that had made Bezos the world's most successful entrepreneur. The flowers were not merely local Hawaiian blooms, but rare orchids. The story they tell begins innocently enough, a scheduled visit to Amazon's Seattle headquarters that was meant to showcase unity and strength between the newlyweds. Jeff had planned the visit as a strategic move, a way to demonstrate that his marriage to Lauren had not distracted him from his business responsibilities, and that she could seamlessly integrate into his corporate world. The optics were meant to be perfect, the power couple touring the facilities together, Lauren charming employees and executives, while Jeff demonstrated his continued hands-on leadership. But according to multiple insiders who were present that day, what was supposed to be a carefully choreographed display of harmony quickly devolved into something far more complicated and potentially explosive. The day started with an underlying tension that few outsiders would have detected, but which was immediately apparent to those who knew Jeff well. The source of the conflict was Lauren's use of a private jet for what Jeff considered an unnecessary trip to New York the previous week. Even by billionaire standards, the expense had been extraordinary, not just the cost of the flight itself, but the additional security, the luxury accommodations, and the impromptu shopping expedition that had extended the trip by several days. For most of the world's wealthy elite, such extravagance would barely register as a line item in their annual budgets. But Jeff had built his empire on a foundation of obsessive cost control and strategic spending. Every dollar, even in his personal life, was expected to serve a purpose, to generate value or advance a specific goal. Lauren's spontaneous luxury, while understandable given her background in Hollywood's culture of excess, represented a fundamental philosophical divide that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Witnesses to their arrival at Amazon headquarters recall the subtle but unmistakable signs of marital discord. Jeff's smile was slightly too rigid, his responses to Lauren's attempts at public affection just a fraction too delayed. Lauren, for her part, seemed to overcompensate with increased vivacity, speaking a bit too loudly, laughing a bit too enthusiastically, as if trying to project the image of wedded bliss through sheer force of performance. The breaking point came during a scheduled meeting with Amazon's board of directors. Jeff was expected to present quarterly projections and discuss the company's expansion into new international markets, the kind of high-stakes, data-driven presentation that represented his element of absolute expertise. But 20 minutes before the meeting was set to begin, Lauren made what those present described as an impossible demand regarding the arrangement of the conference room. She wanted the lighting adjusted to be more flattering for potential photographs, the seating rearranged to ensure she would be prominently featured in any group shots, and insisted that certain board members who had previously made comments she found objectionable be excluded from the session. To Jeff, who had spent decades building relationships with these individuals based on mutual respect and shared business objectives, the requests were not just unreasonable, but potentially damaging to carefully maintained professional relationships. Jeff stood at the altar in a hand-tailored tuxedo that cost more than most people's annual salary, while Lauren glided toward him in a custom Valentino gown worth more than a Beverly Hills mansion. Both smiled with the practiced perfection of people who understood that their every expression would be analyzed, photographed, and dissected by a watching world. Their faces radiated the kind of confidence that comes only from absolute power and unlimited resources. The guest list read like a who's who of global influence. Oscar-winning actors whose names graced movie marquees worldwide, tech visionaries who had reshaped entire industries, senators and governors whose decisions affected millions, and European nobility whose bloodlines stretched back centuries. Each attendee had been carefully selected not just for their friendship, but for what their presence would communicate about the couple's position in the international hierarchy of power. As they spoke, their vows against the backdrop of the Pacific Ocean, with waves crashing dramatically against the volcanic cliffs below, the moment seemed to crystallize everything the modern world associated with success. Here was the ultimate power couple. The man who had revolutionized commerce and space exploration, united with the woman who had conquered Hollywood's social stratosphere through sheer force of will and calculated charisma. Yet even in this moment of apparent triumph, careful observers might have noticed subtle signs of the tensions that would soon threaten to tear their fairy tale apart. The way Jeff's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly when Lauren improvised an addition to her prepared vows. The brief flash of annoyance that crossed his face when she lingered too long during their first dance, clearly reveling in the attention of the cameras and guests. These were micro-expressions that lasted mere seconds, but they hinted at fundamental differences in how each approached their relationship with the public eye. But now, barely 4 weeks after that spectacular celebration, whispers ripple through the most exclusive corridors of Hollywood and the glass towers of Wall Street. These are not the usual gossip mill rumors that follow any celebrity marriage, but serious, hushed conversations among people who wield real power and influence. The whispers speak of a secret connection between Lauren and a senior Amazon executive, a man described by those in the know as devastatingly charismatic, impeccably dressed, and commanding significant influence at the very heart of Bezos' technological empire. The executive in question, whose name has become the subject of intense speculation in Seattle's tech circles, is said to be one of Jeff's most trusted lieutenants. He oversees critical aspects of Amazon's cloud computing division, managing relationships with corporate clients whose contracts are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. More importantly, he has the kind of direct access to Jeff that only a handful of people in the world possess the ability to walk into the CEO's office unannounced, to influence major strategic decisions, and to speak with the authority of someone who truly understands the inner workings of the company. According to multiple sources within Amazon's senior management, this executive had always been known for his professional charm and his ability to navigate complex business relationships with ease. He was the kind of person who could close a difficult deal over dinner, who remembered the names of clients' children, and who had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel like the most important person in the room. These qualities had made him invaluable to Amazon's continued expansion, but they would also prove to be at the center of the brewing scandal. What made the situation even more volatile was the executive's reputation as someone who thrived in high-pressure environments. Colleagues described him as a master of reading people, capable of adapting his approach to fit any situation. Whether it was negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract or smoothing over tensions in a room full of egos. His ability to remain calm under pressure and his knack for turning even the most tense moments into opportunities for connection had earned him a near mythical status within the company. Yet, as the rumors began to spread, some insiders wondered whether this same charm might now be directed inward toward someone far closer to Jeff than anyone had anticipated. The argument that followed was brief but intense, conducted in hushed tones in a private office adjacent to the boardroom. Employees passing in the hallway reported hearing raised voices, though the specific content of their disagreement remained private. What was clear to everyone present was that Jeff emerged from the conversation with the kind of controlled fury that those who had worked with him for years had learned to recognize and fear. Rather than cancel or postpone the meeting, Jeff made the decision that would prove to be the catalyst for everything that followed. He would proceed with the board presentation as scheduled, leaving Lauren to be entertained by other executives while he handled what he considered the real business of the day. It was during this separation that Lauren found herself in conversation with the senior executive who would soon become the center of scandal. Initially, their interaction was entirely appropriate. He had been assigned to give her a tour of the facilities, to explain Amazon's various initiatives, and perhaps discuss potential collaboration opportunities that might interest someone with Lauren's media background. Those who observed the early stages of their conversation described it as professional and cordial. The executive, whose expertise in managing high-profile corporate relationships made him the natural choice for entertaining VIP guests, displayed his characteristic charm and attentiveness. Lauren, clearly frustrated by her earlier confrontation with Jeff, seemed to appreciate having someone who listened to her ideas and treated her opinions with genuine respect. The tour began in Amazon's main lobby, with its soaring ceilings and walls lined with customer testimonials from around the world. Lauren was genuinely impressed by the scale and ambition of what Jeff had built, and she asked intelligent questions about the company's logistics networks, its approach to artificial intelligence, and its plans for space exploration through Blue Origin. The executive proved to be not just knowledgeable but genuinely passionate about Amazon's mission. And their conversation quickly evolved beyond the standard corporate presentation. As they moved through the various departments, from the bustling customer service centers to the quiet intensity of the research and development labs, their interaction became increasingly personal. Lauren found herself sharing stories about her own career journey, her experiences in the competitive world of television journalism, and her perspectives on the intersection of media and technology. The executive, in turn, opened up about his own background, his rise through Amazon's corporate ranks, and his views on leadership and innovation. The chemistry between them was not lost on the employees they encountered during the tour. Several later remarked on the way Lauren seemed to light up during their conversations, displaying a level of engagement and enthusiasm that had been notably absent during her interactions with other executives. There was an ease to their rapport, a natural rhythm of conversation and shared laughter that suggested a connection extending beyond mere professional courtesy. The turning point came when they reached the executive's corner office, a space that reflected both his senior position within the company and his sophisticated personal taste. The office featured floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Seattle's skyline, carefully selected artwork that managed to be both impressive and understated, and a seating area designed for the kind of intimate business discussions that shaped major corporate decisions. It was here, according to multiple sources who claimed to have witnessed the interaction, that their conversation took on a distinctly different tone. What had begun as professional courtesy evolved into something more personal, more charged with unspoken possibility. Lauren accepted the executive's offer of a drink, not the standard corporate coffee or bottled water, but premium whiskey from his private collection, served in crystal glasses that caught the golden afternoon light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The choice wasn't lost on either of them. This wasn't just hospitality, but an unspoken acknowledgement that whatever was happening between them had moved beyond professional courtesy. The amber liquid swirled in the glass as she took it, her fingers brushing against his for just a second too long. Their conversation took on a rhythm of its own, flowing between professional observations and increasingly personal confessions. Lauren found herself speaking about things she'd never voiced aloud, the suffocating weight of being Mrs. Bezos, how her own ambitions had become footnotes in someone else's story, the quiet resentment that simmered beneath her polished public persona. She talked about the loneliness of living in a gilded cage where every smile was calculated and every gesture dissected by the world. The executive listened with an intensity that made her feel truly seen for the first time in years. He didn't offer empty platitudes or try to fix her problems with corporate solutions. Instead, he shared his own vulnerabilities, the pressure of being in Jeff's inner circle, the careful dance of maintaining influence while preserving one's soul, the rare moments when he allowed himself to be something more than Amazon's perfect soldier. There was a raw honesty in his voice that made the whiskey burn less sharply as it went down. As the afternoon wore on, the space between them seemed to shrink naturally. What began as a professional distance across his desk had become an intimate proximity on the leather sofa by the windows. Lauren found herself noticing details she wouldn't have before: the way his cufflinks caught the light when he gestured, the faint scent of his cologne mixing with the whiskey's oak notes, the way his eyes darkened when she spoke about her frustrations. She caught herself wondering what it would be like to be with someone who saw her as an equal rather than an accessory. When his hand accidentally brushed against hers as he reached for his glass, neither pulled away. The contact sent an electric current through her, and she found herself staring at his lips as he spoke, really listening to the timbre of his voice rather than just his words. The air between them grew charged with possibility. Each stolen glance and lingering touch building toward something inevitable. They both knew they were playing with fire, but for the first time in a long time, Lauren didn't care about the consequences. The surveillance footage would later show what happened next: two figures moving closer until their shadows merged, the unmistakable tilt of heads, the way her hand came to rest on his chest. The images would be grainy, captured from an angle that left room for plausible deniability, but the body language told the real story. In that moment, with the Seattle skyline stretching behind them and the whiskey warm in their veins, they crossed a line that would change everything. There would be no going back from this, no way to pretend it hadn't happened. The die was cast. The immediate aftermath of their encounter was handled with the kind of professional discretion that both Lauren and the executive had perfected through years of navigating complex social and business situations. They separated without drama, returned to their respective responsibilities, and maintained perfect composure when they encountered other Amazon employees throughout the remainder of the day. But within the echo chambers of corporate power, secrets have a way of amplifying rather than diminishing over time. Still photographs, allegedly taken by someone who had observed their interaction from outside the glass-walled office, began circulating among Amazon's senior leadership. The images were said to be ambiguous enough to provide plausible deniability, but suggestive enough to fuel intense speculation about exactly what had transpired during Lauren's visit. The story spread with the particular velocity that only the most explosive gossip achieves in environments where information itself is currency. Within hours, the rumors had reached not just Amazon's executive suite, but the broader networks of business leaders, political figures, and media personalities who comprised Jeff and Lauren's social circle. Some of Jeff's oldest and most trusted advisors, men and women who had been with him since the early days of Amazon when the company operated out of a garage, urged him to confront the situation immediately. They argued that allowing rumors to fester and spread would be far more damaging than addressing them head-on, even if it meant acknowledging uncomfortable truths about his marriage. Others took a different approach, warning Jeff about the dangers of letting perception become accepted reality in the absence of concrete evidence. They pointed to the political and business enemies who would be delighted to see him brought low by personal scandal, and argued that any public acknowledgement of marital problems would be weaponized against him in ways that could affect not just his personal reputation, but Amazon's stock price and his various other business ventures. For a man who had built his empire on the foundation of discipline, control, and strategic thinking, the idea of scandal erupting within his own headquarters felt like more than just personal betrayal. It represented an attack on the very image and organizational culture he had spent decades carefully cultivating. Amazon was supposed to be a place where personal drama took a backseat to professional excellence, where decisions were made based on data rather than emotion, and where Jeff's leadership was unquestioned and unquestionable. The story of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez serves as a compelling case study in the unique pressures faced by those who operate at the highest levels of wealth and influence. Their marriage exists not in the private sphere that most couples inhabit, but in a fishbowl of global attention where every gesture is analyzed, every decision scrutinized, and every rumor amplified into international headlines. Whether their relationship ultimately survives or becomes another cautionary tale about the impossibility of maintaining authentic human connections under the intense pressures of extreme wealth and power, their story illuminates the complex dynamics that govern the lives of the global elite. In their world, love and strategy, emotion and calculation, personal desire and public image become so intertwined that it becomes impossible to separate authentic feeling from calculated performance. As they navigate the coming months and years, Jeff and Lauren will continue to face choices that most people never have to confront. How do you preserve genuine intimacy when your relationship is a global brand? How do you maintain trust when every interaction might be photographed, recorded, or reported? And how do you build a life together when the stakes of failure extend far beyond personal heartbreak to include financial markets, corporate governance, and international influence? The answers to these questions will not just determine the fate of their marriage, but will provide insights into the nature of power, wealth, and human connection in the modern world. Their story is far from over, and the world continues to watch with fascination as two of the most influential people of their generation attempt to write a love story worthy of their extraordinary circumstances.